Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Beers FPL. We've got an exciting double game week still sort of in progress. So we're still waiting on the City score. So that'll obviously happen. We're filming this before the City game. So hopefully by the end of it, we'll have some good points and we'll both be happy. If you are following us or you haven't followed us on Twitter, then follow us at Twitter at Beers FPL. That's at Beers FPL.
Well done for getting it right. We're 6 months in and we're there. We've got the name right. Yeah, cheers for coming check us out on YouTube. Don't forget to like and subscribe while you're here.
Cool. So it was a bit of mixed fortunes for us over this sort of double game week and the season, to be honest. You continue to fly high. So let's get you crowing about your team for this week and how you're feeling and maybe what your plans are for the game week going forward.
Okay. Yeah, the good fortune, I would say, more good fortune than good tactical thinking for myself continues. Overall rank is into the top 3K. That is mid-game week. Obviously, we've got a few players to play tonight. I've got Cancelo, De Bruyne, Haaland, so that could change. I'm hoping it might go up. We'll see. I think Haaland blanking shouldn't be too much of a rank killer. The only thing that could be a rank killer would be Cancelo not playing and other City defenders getting a clean sheet, or weird differentials like Son scoring or Kulusevski, you know what I mean? But so far, yeah, overall really happy. Out of 11 million players now, I'm in the top 3K, which is the best I think I've ever been. This week,
we need to work out what the percentage is for that, because that must be like a crazy percentage that you're in. I mean, I don't think I've seen anybody else with a rank that high. I mean, I'm talking most content creators. I don't think I've seen anybody with a rank that high. So yeah, man, we should definitely be bigging up, talking about it. You know what I mean? Putting pressure on you. But yeah, it's good.
No, I'm buzzing about it. I think
long may it continue.
As I've been getting the green arrows and going up. I've just been sort of waiting for one of those disaster ones, but I feel like my team's relatively template, which is quite safe. If I just keep it like that and have a few little differentials, I've never been in this position before, so I don't know how to play it. Like, I'm top of my two main leagues that I want to win, and obviously in a really good position. I think I'm only like 80 points off world number one, so it's like I want to keep in this position, keep stable with the sort of template team, but have a couple of, doesn't even need to be differentials, just, a couple of times this season I've gone against Haaland captain and it's kind of worked out. Those kind of moves, but nothing too drastic, which is not my style. Usually I'm like, screw it and just do whatever. So, I'm getting a bit nervous about it, but it's also exciting. It's good to be doing well. And as you can see, 67 this week, which I'm really happy with. The average is only 42. I took a -4. So the very obvious transfer that I'd done during the break there was Salah to De Bruyne. Salah just wasn't really firing. Liverpool weren't firing at all. Couldn't risk going without De Bruyne for this week's double and then the pending double in game week 23. Obvious pick, even though De Bruyne's not been on form since the World Cup. You just know he's going to get a haul eventually. Cancelo was a big worry for me, but didn't think he'll play 2 of the games. Obviously, he's just started there. Is he going to start tonight? We'll find out in the next hour or so. We'll see. He's got big red flag for me. I want to get rid of him at some point, but I just didn't feel like it was the right time to. And then my other transfer, -4, was getting rid of Alexander Mitrovic and bringing in Ivan Toney. All week I'd been sort of set on. I was toying with going for, who was it again? Martial, just for the double.
I was going to make a joke there about that being a bit of a gamble, but it would have been too on the nose. So,
a big gamble.
It paid off.
Because we know he's got a ban coming, so he could get banned any time. But I just knew the next 3 fixtures looked quite tasty, and he's been on form. I really like him. I've never owned him as well, so there was that sort of exciting first time pick, and obviously that paid off. So having Toney and Ben White were my sort of 2 that really helped me, and Kepa, 10 points in goal. Like these 3 players, the ones that really helped me with the rank boost this week, because everyone else, all the other players are who we all generally have. Nothing too exciting on my bench. But
what's your plans going forward? Like, how are you looking to make any massive transitions, or are you keeping it fairly tight for the next game week?
For this game week, at the moment I'm hoping to just roll. my transfer into game week 22 because there's a high possibility that Man United might have a double game week, and I want to attack that. And I'm quite okay with the team I've got at the moment. I don't think there's any changes I'm making. Sub-wise, I think it's exactly the same. Yeah, I've not touched anything. I'm deciding to go with Kepa over Ward. Just think Liverpool are rubbish. Brighton will probably score against Leicester. It's a toss-up. Captain, I might take a wee punt on Kane, but in terms of no transfers this week, going forward, I would love to have 2 transfers going into 22 in case there is that double for Man United. I can attack that. I can potentially do a -4 there to do 3 transfers, a little bit of a mini wild card just to set me up for 23, 24, 25 and onwards a little bit. I want to hold up my wild card as long as possible and the rest of my chips. So I think my team's in quite good shape. The only problems are Cancelo. Almiron, I'm sort of losing a bit of patience with. There's plenty of players, especially the Brighton players, that could step into there. Andreas, I'm kind of wanting to get rid of. So the sort of plan would be potentially after Fulham this week, Kane could drop down to maybe Nketiah to attack Arsenal's double coming up. And then that would obviously free up a lot of money for me to upgrade Almiron, Andreas. If I get rid of Cancelo, that'll free up a lot of money as well. So I feel like the team's in good shape and there's lots of avenues to do whatever I want with it.
Cool. Let's have a look at the bin fire. That is my team.
Not that bad.
That's pish, man. It's really bad. I'm really getting frustrated at my luck. Just not swinging around. So yeah, we talked about triple captain chip, and both of us using it, and I think we got swayed by a lot of the content creators talking about using the triple captain at the right time. To be honest, the logic was fairly sound. I think everybody was expecting maybe City to do more against Man United than they probably were going to do. But the City form is worrying big time at the minute. I just like Pep changing the team consistently, players just not returning. It's a bit worrying, and we should probably talk about that in a bit about sort of City players going forward. But yeah, for me, I brought in Kevin De Bruyne, obviously, for Salah, which is my big transfer. I didn't take a -4 or anything. I just kind of went with that. I was quite happy. Thought my team would do okay. Get done by the troll, an absolute belter again. So Digne doing his usual, taking an injury 15 minutes into the game, getting a 1-pointer. Yeah, he's probably just the usual. I just should have avoided. Don't know what I was thinking. Villa had taken a wee swing in sort of fixtures. I thought they were playing a wee bit better. Presumed wrongly that he might get some chances and maybe help create some goals. But yeah, bit of a waste of time. Martial, another kind of misstep. Thought, he was coming on a bit of form, was beginning to play well. Thought he might do okay going forward. But yeah, I should have just gone for somebody like Bruno or something. If I could have swung it round, it just not great. Rashford, probably my big success. And De Gea seems to be doing okay. I was quite chuffed up until about the 90th minute yesterday.
Yeah.
When Crystal Palace scored a worldie. But what can you do? Again, it's just luck. And as I say, I keep trying to say to myself, it's a marathon and not a sprint. So just to kind of keep the focus. So going forward, I've got a kind of urgent transfer out list, which is probably going to be Martial and Digne for me. So I've got a feeling that I need to kind of maybe switch them out and try and get somebody better. And Digne, he's all right. I just need to get him out. If he's injured, I don't know how long he's going to be, but it's just pointless keeping him in anyway. And then probably not so urgent, but over the next couple of game weeks, I'm going to have a look at sort of Robertson and Cancelo are going to be problematic. I have to see how City play, whether Cancelo continues to play or whether he is going to be benched. I need to see whether Liverpool actually do anything going forward. They just look absolutely rank rotten at the minute, and also Leicester's huge dip in form again with Castagna is a big problem. So yeah, we've got 5 players probably looking to punt over the next couple of game weeks. I've probably speaking about taking maybe possibly a -4 this week and possibly a -4 next week if I'm feeling like I need to do instant surgery, but we'll wait and see what happens. I think my big move is going to be Martial, probably out straight away. It'd be good to get somebody decent in at the attack. And yeah, that's probably where I'm going to be looking. So with that in mind, let's talk a little bit about some of the targets that we're both maybe going to be looking at.
Cool.
I've got a few that I'm going to put to you, see what you think, have your thoughts on them.
I just wanted to
and
chip in just before we move on there, just when you're talking about your conundrum about Cancelo and Robertson. It's a tough decision, but personally, I just feel like Cancelo is such a big fire compared to Robertson. You know, Robertson's going to be nailed. The fixtures look good. That sounds no-brainer. You're like, Cancelo gone. But you know, it just annoys me so much. Like, see if Cancelo was nailed, obviously you'd be keeping him there. They've got one double coming up in 23, and I think they've got another one scheduled at some point to be announced. And it's just so frustrating. Like, you know, you're going to end up, that's going to sway you probably, is that Cancelo's not nailed. You're going to stick with Robertson, and then Cancelo's going to start the next 3 games and get a goal. Like, I find that a really difficult decision. Like, we can come on to talking about City, but just I wanted to touch on that. Like, I was just in my head, I was like, Robertson all the way, he's nailed. He's going to play for Liverpool, even though they're not doing that well. But then that's why I've still got Cancelo, and I don't know when I'm going to sell him. I know he's a problem, but it's just a worry that he just comes back into the team, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, how do I get the money to get a 7 million defender in? It's such an annoying problem that everyone's got.
I mean, I think if you think about it, it's just FPL, and actually, what makes sense is to maybe forget, like we spoke about already, like with Salah before. Sometimes it's better just to forget your bias and just assume that a player isn't going to turn the corner. He's not going to get games. He's not playing well. He's not, firing on all cylinders. So it's a lot of money to be locked up in your defence. Robertson's maybe a bit of a different case because it's really the team that are the problem rather than Robertson, because Robertson will still get returns. The big thing that worries me is having Cancelo in my team and he doesn't do anything. He's not getting games, and then I've got Robertson in my team as well, and then say Robertson gets injured. That's a major problem within. So there are far better smaller teams who are pulling in clean sheets, costing less money, doing better things, like Ben White, Man United of defenders, Dallo and Shaw going forward are going to be where you really should be looking. So, I mean, as much as it makes sense that you would be worried that they might bite you, I don't really care anymore. I genuinely think now that there's no point. The thing we shouldn't be doing is looking at recency bias and thinking, because for the past 3 seasons have been amazing, this season has clearly showed that the form book's out the window. So you're better to try and be proactive and do these things before, it becomes a real problem. So it's not, I'm not definitely doing it yet. I'm just saying that over the next couple of weeks, I'm probably going to have to make that decision. So it gives me a little bit of time to see whether Cancelo plays tonight, whether he plays in the next game week, whether Robertson plays, whether Liverpool actually do anything, because they have looked absolutely bogging. And also, there's been a lot of chat by Femi saying that he might bring in players that played really well in the FA Cup. He might change things up to try and get a little bit of kind of reinvigoration into that Liverpool squad. So we know that Andy Robertson's a rotation risk, and it could happen again with Simicast and stuff. So it's just one of those things you need to keep an eye on. But if it gets much worse, I'm really going to have to just go in and do some real major surgery on the team. But for the minute, I'm content to sit on the two of them for maybe the next game week and see how they play out. But I really worry that I'm already falling behind, and if I continue to sort of dilly-dally on these players, that it's going to cost me in the near future. So I'm better just to try and fight fire quickly and get some changes in. With that in mind, let's quickly, before we do targets, let's quickly talk about the City players. Just a very brief summary and what your thoughts are. I know we've both literally just talked about Cancelo, but how are you feeling about City? What's your thoughts? Obviously, most people now seem to have the sort of Haaland, De Bruyne combo, and then either Cancelo or the goalkeeper. What's your thoughts on it? Where are you looking? Are you worried about them? They've got this double game week coming up in 25, albeit one of their games is against Arsenal. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, it's tough, man. Yeah, so I've got Haaland, De Bruyne and Cancelo. As we spoke about, Cancelo is definitely a problem. I feel like going into 23, the double game week with Man City and Arsenal play each other, I would prefer to have triple Arsenal and just double City, and the double City just being the safe Haaland and De Bruyne. The only sort of thing is that De Bruyne spot I've got, or we've all got, in 22, if Man United double, I'd quite like to have Bruno Fernandes. And
yeah, definitely.
I'm talking about I could maybe downgrade Kane and then I could upgrade a midfielder to Bruno. I could probably keep De Bruyne and do it that way, but it's tough, man, because you know what City are like. You just feel that they're going to turn a corner and they're going to start smashing teams, but then they just don't, and it's delaying them. So it's like you're saying, that recency bias. Like every time you see City's fixtures, they're all in green, most of them, and you're just like, easy fixture for City. You've got to go after those players. So, but I just think Haaland and De Bruyne, outside that, I worry about anyone. Obviously, Ederson's a safe pick, but I feel like you could get better value from other goalkeepers, so cheaper goalkeepers. So to be honest, I can't shout loudly about any of the players apart from Haaland and De Bruyne. They're all rotating,
I mean,
and they're not firing. It's not even. Remember when Foden dipped out the team? It was kind of like, oh, look, I don't mind holding on to him or having him. If he comes on in the last 15 minutes, he'll probably get a return. No, you can't trust that anymore.
It's not. It's definitely not worth it. I mean, I think like if you're really wanting to be, I mean, the two we've just talked about is the only two that are worth it. And then I think where the value might lie is trying to suss out, what midfielders are going to do, maybe get a little bit of form, are going to play in the team that out with sort of Foden and Mahrez, because you can't trust Foden and Mahrez. So does Grealish or Bernardo Silva or Gundogan become an option, because Pep's obviously going to change things up? So, but then again, these would all be short-term punts, because you just don't know what the long-term goal is, and at the minute, it's probably not worth taking those chances. I think doubling up on them makes sense, but I think going forward, that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to leave it at 2 for City until the form returns. There's just no point. They just don't look good. They've not. I mean, that Man United game, they just look absolutely flaccid. And they're not normally like that, especially in a kind of derby game. And admittedly, that Rashford goal was an absolute travesty. Like, I cannot believe they got away with that. Was not Rashford, Bruno goal, sorry. The Rashford offside. That doesn't really matter, because you would still expect City to turn the game around, and he just didn't. He just looked absolutely shell shocked. So, I think doubling up. I think Arsenal are the team in form and the team to look at, and then maybe like Newcastle and stuff. But I would probably be avoiding teams like City, probably Liverpool, really, and even Spurs. I mean, they just don't look. They look absolutely shell shocked at the minute as well. Like, that performance over the past couple of games has not been good enough. So, yeah, but it's a tough one. I know you've got Kane and you're kind of sitting, and we were looking at Kane for a long term, because the fixtures do look good, but I just worry there's a lot of rumblings going on with the management. Seeming like he's fallen out of the board. It just seems like Son has not been firing at all, so it could be problematic. But with that in mind, let's have a look at some of the players that we're both maybe looking at going forward. I've got a few that I want to throw at you, just to kick us off, and ones that I'm kind of interested in. So we already spoke about Bruno Fernandes, who we both definitely rate, and we definitely think people should be looking at, especially after this game week, how well he's been playing. And defender wise, I think Shaw or Dallo, when he comes back, are both sort of no-brainers for me. If you're looking, I really like Dallo. I think Dallo's a better pick than Shaw when he plays, but obviously the injury, it depends when he's free to come through. But if we could get him back for game week 22, he's definitely a shout. I definitely like. So they're the kind of fairly obvious ones, but I've got a few little kind of side wheel ones that I want to kind of talk about. Brighton are the team in form at the minute. Me and you are speaking about Brighton quite a lot. We have done since the start of the season. So our boy Trossard is currently a subject of an Arsenal bid. But what's your thoughts? I just want to say one, which is Solly March. I've been championing Solly March privately between me and you for a while, and I really wish I'd gone for him this week. And instead of just focusing on the sort of double game week fixtures and stuff like that. But what's your thoughts? I know you were looking at Ferguson, and I know you've got a sweet spot for one of the other players. So talk us through it.
Well, yeah, March he's a very, very attractive option. I think now he looks like he's nailed down on the right wing. I had a bit of a worry at one point that I felt, was he still playing on the right wing back? But it seems like that's where Gross is now sitting, and the front three is going to be Ferguson or Welbeck plus Mitoma and plus March. So brilliant shout. I just wonder, is that form going to continue? But it's just like Almiron. Like, if you jumped on Almiron whenever you talked about him, you would have got loads of points. If you jumped on March, but that's just like the way these things happen. I wonder, is March's form going to kind of stutter? Mitoma is the one that I really like, and I'm sure I mentioned him weeks and weeks ago when we first seen him come on as a sub, and he got an assist. He just looked so lively. And now when you read about him, how he's got like a degree in dribbling and stuff like that, it makes a lot of sense. His touch is so good and he's so fast. And I feel like he's got, if you look at March's stats versus Mitoma's stats, March's are ahead, but they're not that ahead when you talk about like the shots in the box and the assist potential that Mitoma has. So I feel like, for like, both of them are the 5 million mark. Mitoma just excites me a bit more. I'd really like to get him in as a replacement for either Almiron or Andreas Pereira. The Ferguson shout was just, if you're looking for an enabler striker, he's probably not going to be in the team every week now that Welbeck's back and he just scored. It's a good enough punt. But if you're going to spend 4.5, if you've got an extra $500,000, you could get Gnonto from Leeds, who looks like he's nailed down that spot. He's a striker in FPL. Leeds have got some good fixtures coming up. They might end up sacking their manager and then having a wee new manager bounce. You never know. So I'd keep an eye on him as well. But Brighton are just really good assets. I really like McAllister as well. Like, he was the one I had my eye on the most, just because of the penalties and how good he looked in the World Cup, assists, key passes and stuff. So any one of those that we've mentioned, March, Mitoma and McAllister, I just think are solid options. I kind of want all three, but caution, potential blank in 25.
I think it's interesting because it's got shades of the sort of Arsenal midfield there, with the sort of Martinelli Odegaard debate. And in that situation, you know, it will flip at some point and Mitoma will start scoring and March will maybe not. But, you know, you really want to jump on the player that's scoring, I think, at the minute. And my advice would be March. I think I really like Mitoma. He's definitely on my radar. But I think March is the one that's calling to me. And like I said, once the call's been made, I really should jump on these things because, you know, instead of waiting out, that's cost me, you know, scored 2 goals. How many points did he get at the weekend? Like 19 or something?
19,
yeah, he would have been a great shout and he probably would have saved me a little bit of hassle this week. But what can you do? These calls need to be made at the time. And I think going forward, I'm going to listen to my gut a little bit more with these things. So, yeah, definitely going to go for that. With regards to Ferguson, I don't like him as a pick unless he's a facilitator and you're putting him third slot on your bench. I've got a kind of worry that he's a good wee player and he is getting returns, but I just worry that with the more experienced striker coming back, and De Serbi's got that option, then it can mean he gets less game time, which could be a real worry. But if you do need the money, I do think he's a great third bench slot option. So yeah. So on the other side of that, the sort of flip side, I've got 2 other kind of names that I'm kind of keen on. The one that you've just mentioned, which I really like, and we should definitely come back to, is the Leeds team, and Nonto and Rodrigo are 2 that we should talk about. I think, forward wise, Nonto looks like absolutely on fire. I wouldn't go too much on that game, but like looking at what he played in the FA Cup and stuff like that last night, he looks fairly decent. He's definitely one to keep an eye on. He's on the radar. I think he's going to start really banging soon. I think he tends to be playing quite well. But yeah, I'm glad you mentioned him because I completely forgot to put him on my list. But he's one that it's worth looking at. And I know we spoke previously about Rodrigo as well. So do you think Rodrigo could be an option?
Yeah, either of them. Obviously, Rodrigo being a midfielder in the game and Nonto being a striker, so it depends on what you're looking to do. But either of them, like their fixtures here, this little run.
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
Even in 22, if Man United get the double, it's against Leeds. So Leeds will be playing Man United home and away in consecutive game weeks. And like Leeds can score against any team. I mean, and Man United we know aren't always solid. So I mean, I think even for that double game week, Rodrigo still on penalties. The only anxiety I would have about that is that Bamford's back and he scored 2 in that cup game last night. Like, he's going to come back into the team at some point, be the penalty taker again. for Rodrigo's price point, the 6.4, if you're getting a midfielder, you can get March, you can get Matoma cheaper.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different options there. You can spend a little bit more and you can get to Odegaard, Martinelli. So I think out of the two, it would be Nonto he's not even a facilitator in your front line. I think with those fixtures, you're going to want to play him. And he's clearly cemented down that spot. You can see when his minutes come in here, he's starting to be a sub, and then he's 90, 69, 90, 90. And he obviously played and scored 2 last night. So, yeah.
I'm literally now just thinking about just quickly do that. Just take Martial out and put him in, because he looks absolutely brilliant, and he's definitely on fire. And I was looking, the two teams that have the big fixtures going forward are Leeds and Forest. So I definitely like the look of maybe getting some possible sort of Leeds players in, or Forest if you needed to facilitate, money wise. But Leeds and Forest are the two that have the possible good fixtures going forward as well. The other option up front, which I can see there, is Isak. He's just come back into this Newcastle team. I think he offers them a slightly better option going forward than Callum Wilson. They really like Callum Wilson, but he's not really been firing. So there's a real opportunity for him to come in. You can jump on him before others start to get on him, because I think going forward he could really step up and start playing quite well again, because he's a great player. So would he be a possibility in your plans as well?
Yeah, I liked him when he first came in, and I knew I was going to want to get him in at some point. I thought obviously the injury hampered that, but if you just look at his stats, he's made 4 appearances for Newcastle and he's scored in 3 of them. Played 63, 90 and 90, and then recently came on as a sub 19. So his numbers are there. It's just I wouldn't want to jump on him until I know that he's nailed, and until we know he's going to be playing 90 minutes. I wonder, that's one of my sort of worries about Almiron, is Almiron's stats have kind of dropped off since the World Cup. And then if Howe is going to want to play Isak and Wilson, which I think is a brilliant idea, where does Almiron fit in? I don't think he would really just go out of the team, but how does that change the structure of the team? They're currently playing with like a front 3 with Murphy generally. They've got Alan Saint-Maximin to come back as well, so I feel like Almiron as an asset is going to be worrying. But if Isak comes in and starts nailing down a place, I like it for that price, 6.6. And could he become a penalty taker? Don't know.
I definitely think it's possible. I'm sure he did for was it Sociedad that he played for?
Yeah.
He definitely took penalties for Sociedad, so it's definitely a great option. The very last one, which I'm going to bring up, which I think is probably the most off the wall one, is JWP. So Southampton seem to have turned the corner a wee bit in terms of the scorelines recently, but also James Ward-Prowse has been given an opportunity now that he seems to have been released to defensive responsibilities. So he's moving forward now. Had a great game against Everton. I know we have kind of dallied with kind of had dalliances with him in the past. Could he be a possible bringing in? Whether how well Southampton have been playing. I like the look of them. I mean, the fixtures are amazing. They're okay. Villa, Brentford and Wolves are decent. Even Chelsea to an extent. Chelsea haven't been playing that great either. So it's a 4-game run that you're going to get a fairly decent fixture run out of them. So, and at that price as well, 6.2 could facilitate moves to some kind of more expensive players elsewhere. So it's definitely one I think should be on your radar and one to probably keep an eye on.
Aye, great point, man. I had him in some of my drafts in the unlimited transfers, and the only thing that put me off is, like you said, we've had him in previous seasons whenever he's had loads of green fixtures coming up and he just didn't perform. But very different team, different manager, and like you said, against Everton, he was playing in that number 10 role. He was like Frank Lampard. Aye. That first goal that he scored, when he cut in, and then he was just so composed. So Southampton, they're going to have to keep playing him in that position. Like, it worked so well. Brilliant fixtures. The only thing that why I've not mentioned being on my immediate radar is just kind of what I said about Rodrigo. Just in that price point, I feel like there's other priorities, but that's something that I regret about the unlimited transfers. As I did go pretty much completely template. I went for Rashford, I went for Martinelli, I kept Almiron because of his pre-World Cup form. Then obviously went for a premium and then an enabler like Andreas. But if I can figure out the funds, I'd love to be upgrading or replacing Almiron with either James Ward-Prowse or Rodrigo or some of the names we've mentioned. But he's so solid. I think these 3 fixtures, and then like you said, Chelsea and Leeds and there's points to be had there for him. See if they keep him playing in that number 10 position, and his free kicks, and his corners, and his set pieces and crosses, and his passing ability. So good, man. He's such a great potential asset, but he just always lets me down. I'm always kind of worried, but
he's definitely on my radar. I think I've just watching recently and a lot of chat about him, and I know a lot of the pundits have been really impressed with the fact that Nathan Jones has allowed him to step forward and really come into that creative role, which he's good at and he deserves to be playing in. So I think providing certain things go his way, he's definitely one to have on the radar. So quite an interesting one. Have you got any kind of major targets or kind of hot list things you're looking at, people on your radar that you, other than the sort of Brighton players and other kind of players
slightly,
that we've talked about?
Man United, just because the fact they only own Rashford at the moment, and there's a very high possibility they're going to have a double game week, double game at home, Crystal Palace, and then followed by Leeds. Touching back to what you said about Shaw, like Shaw is a good pick. He's just very highly owned. I probably will end up going for him, but I'm really fascinated by Wan-Bissaka now. I don't know if Dallow's going to come straight back into the team. He's obviously been injured for quite a bit now since the World Cup. Really, he sort of came back in and then got injured again. And when you read about the Man United fans talking about Wan-Bissaka, they're raving about him. His performance has been brilliant. He made like a game-saving tackle last night in the 89th minute or 90th minute against Zaha. So, and Ten Hag's raving about him. I just think he's such a good differential shout. I wouldn't mind taking a punt on him, because see, at that price, like if I take the punt on him for the double game week and then Dallo plays one and then starts to come back in, like I can just bench him and then sort him out in my wild card. Like he's tempting me more than Shaw. I just feel like bring in Shaw, you're just getting the points that everyone else gets.
The only thing I'd say about Wan-Bissaka is attacking returns going forward. You know, I know that in previous seasons he has been fairly like kind of roving, but you just worry that he's maybe not a points magnet for that, because he does get clean sheet points and bonus points, obviously. But that was my only concern would be with him, because I think everybody obviously kind of goes crazy over Shaw because he does put a lot of crossing in the box and stuff. But that would be my only point I would make. I think it's a nice shout, but maybe just something to think about.
Yeah, I mean, he's not on my immediate radar. I just wanted to mention him as an alternative to Shaw and Dallo. See, to be honest, everyone that you've sort of mentioned, we've already mentioned everyone that's kind of on my radar. I want to go get somebody in like March or Matoma. Downgrading Kane, I'm very keen on Nketiah. We haven't really mentioned him. I know Jesus should be back in sort of February, but with Arsenal's double coming up, I kind of want to go for him. But Odegaard, I can't really ignore now. I've ignored him all season. I haven't rated him the way that he should be rated.
I did say this when we talked about this during the kind of unlimited transfer phase. We spoke about it, and I did say that
you wanted him.
I kind of fancied Ode over Martinelli, and I went for Martinelli, which was a bit daft. But what can you do? I mean, it was well tossing a coin in that Arsenal midfield, because it's just the way the form swings and goes, you know.
Yeah, I think going forward from whether it's going to be next week or the week after or whatever, you want to triple up in Arsenal, and I feel like it should be two midfielders. Like, as much as I'm kind of tempted by Nketiah, I could maybe just go for Nonto. And then I've got Martinelli. I'd like to have Martinelli plus Odegaard. I'd love to have maybe Saka and Odegaard, but that's a bit more surgery. But I think I need to get Odegaard in. He's going to be one of my priorities before game week 23. Marks or Matoma, and then sort out the Cancelo position. But I don't think there's anybody that you've not already mentioned that's kind of on my radar. Everyone else it's all the kind of more obvious ones. I do really like as a cheap alternative. I've mentioned him so many times. Brennan Johnson, Forrester now coming up points.
Yeah, I was going to say fixture wise, so they've definitely got.
I've seen this guy, right, Serge Aurier. I've always thought he was useless, right? Look at the form he's just picked up. 7, 1, 10, 8, 8 points wise. He's getting the 90 minutes, right? So he's stolen Nico Williams' position. He's got a wee goal in there, and Forrester getting clean sheets, and then they've got
the fixtures as well.
Fixtures coming up. I don't know, like, is he worth a shout? It just seems dangerous. He feels like a trap.
But if I was wildcarding, he would definitely be under a shout. By the way, I hadn't really had him on my radar, but if I was going to do that,
5.
Yeah. Speaking of wildcards, so obviously we've got a interesting sort of like looking at the fixtures going forward. There's game weeks over the next maybe up until about game week 30. We'll just kind of avoid the last third of the season, but we've got some interesting sort of fixtures and double game weeks and blanks to maybe think about. So we know that there's going to be double game week for City in game week 23, which we should obviously keep your City players for, and your Arsenal. So as we spoke about before, tripling up on Arsenal, maybe doubling up, or possibly tripling up on City if you're being brave. Then we've got sort of like a big double game week in 29 apparently. We've got a blank in 25, and we've got a sort of bigger blank in 28. So with respect of that, what's your thoughts on wildcard? Are you just going to sit on the wildcard and keep it for later in the season, or would you recommend if somebody was having a tough time, with their team, i.e. me, would you say, it's maybe worth just throwing the wild card in and trying to navigate those things using sort of, free hit and stuff like that?
I think it's too soon for your wild card. Like, even your team looks like it needs a bit of surgery. It's going to my camera, man. Whatever. So, but it's not that bad. So you've maybe got like 3 or 4 players. None of them are ones that you have to get rid of. So if somebody was the same as you, I would just go in that route that you're doing, plan some transfers, take a couple of hits, minor surgery, and just navigate it as it goes on. Unless you've got just tons of injuries or something like that. But I can't understand how somebody's team could be in that bad shape. What are we, only 3 weeks after the unlimited transfer? 4 weeks? 3 weeks?
Yeah, no, exactly.
So you want to try and hold on to it as long as possible, I feel, because there's going to be the big double game weeks, like you said. I don't know what game week it is, maybe sort of 29. You kind of want to be playing it around that time, maybe before it, a week or 2 before it, when you know the full picture. Set up your team, and then you could attack the double game week with your bench boost, and then use your free hit when we've got a big blank. So I just think your wild card you want to be playing when you're going to be playing another chip, like the following week or something. Just now is just not the right time. We've still got a lot to get announced in terms of double game weeks. We've got Champions League football to come back as well. This is a wee period, like this 2021 on to 24, 25. I just think that's just a watch period. Make little moves, take a wee point hit here and there if you need to, but yeah, save the wild card for at least 26 onwards.
So you mentioned sort of game like taking hits and stuff like that. Like I know last season we were quite blasé about it and quite enjoyed, taking -4s and -8s, but obviously different circumstances last season because there was a lot of sort of fixture postponements and games being moved and stuff like that. So this season we both have avoided. I think I've done 1 -4 and you've done 2, maybe. Is that right? I think
I've done -16 in total. I've done a -8, and I think it was the first double game week of the season. Then I've done 2 -4s. So I've done 4 hits technically now, and I'm doing well. So it works as long as they're calculated and they're long-term hits. Then
I think that's something I'm going to look at this, especially this game week. I know you spoke about having 2 transfers next week for game week 22, but I feel like taking a -4 this week and maybe a -4 next week if I need to, just to give myself that little bit of breathing space, is not the end of the world. So I think that might be a slightly better option than, like you say, using your wild card, which you probably will need to kind of navigate the choppier waters of game week 28, 29, 30, 32, when we start getting into the sort of big blanks and big doubles. So definitely makes sense. I think I'm going to probably play it. Yeah. Well, with that, I think we can leave it at that. A really good video. I enjoyed chatting about all my terrible choices I've made so far and the players that I'm looking at going forward. But if you like that video, like and subscribe. Obviously hit that button below, gives a bit of chat and stuff like that.
Cool. And enjoy the City game tonight. Hopefully the triple captain Haaland team get some points.
Mate, I need to score 4 goals, otherwise I think we're going to have a terrible game week. But
right. Thanks for tuning in again, everyone. See you next week.
Catch you later.